Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here today. For those of you that are both in the hall and as many of you as are online, I want to use this opportunity to commend and congratulate Emanuela Imu for organizing and galvanizing all of us to attend this 2023 Social Impact Marketing Summit. I must commend the vision and the focus on the non-profit aspect of and social enterprise aspect of this conference in drawing us from all nooks and corners to ensure that we are all gathered here today to look at one thing and one thing only as a core theme, to be digitally empowered for impact. I think that in itself is relevant, and this is the time that we need to scale up collectively together. I want to first of all apologize that I'm not there in person for this conference, and I must commend Emanuela because she wanted to secure me early, and so I think she had already reached out to me at the beginning of the year. But I did confess to her that my schedule is one that I really don't have control over, and it's very volatile, so anything can happen at any point in time. And unfortunately, I am out of town for several days and probably weeks, and so there was no way I could wing it, and I do sincerely apologize for that. Emanuela, I owe you one. Today I will be bringing to all of us the guidelines from a practical perspective of building sustainable organizations. And of course, when we talk about sustainability, what are we referring to? To build a sustainable organization means that you are building something at a certain rate and tempo in such a manner that it is successful over time. I mean, in this current dispensation, everybody is aware of the ESG. When we mention sustainability, we're looking at environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and governance sustainability. But also, we cannot ignore economic sustainability, which is extremely important when you are thinking about the non-profit and social sector space and what we do around the work that we do. What differentiates the non-profit from the profit-based organization is that even though profit is important to all of us, in the non-profit we know it has surplus, and the surplus exists because you need to run the organization and you need to execute the things that you do so that you make an impact within your communities or whatever problem it is you want to solve. So there must be that sustainable angle to it, because we don't have the kind of resources that the non-profit have. That is why a number of non-profits are sort of evolving into having social enterprises. Because when you have a social enterprise, the income from that is able to fund the social problem that you want to solve. Unlike when it's a full non-profit, then you are dependent on a financial model that will ensure that sustainability. And so technically what I want to share today are things that most of you know about, but I'm just going to break it down in a language that will be easier for each and every one of us. And I will say before I start that most sustainable organizations outlive their founders. And that is what makes it sustainable. It's not about an individual, it is about an institution. And so if you have that mindset that you are building an institution, then you will be able to manage all your resources in such a way that you are thinking futuristically and not thinking about this thing dying with you. So what are some of the things that ensure that a sustainable organization is sustainable? I've divided them into about 6 P's because I want to dissect each of these P's. Number 1 is your purpose. Every single organization is created to solve a problem. And one of the things I want to remind us of is that you cannot solve everything. Your clarity of purpose will determine focus. Because what happens to most organizations is that when they start, amidst some of their struggle, when they see funding opportunities in other areas, they tend to be misguided, and because they need that funding, they jump into something else. No. When you start an organization, you must be very clear about what the problem is. And that problem you have identified, who and who are the people that are suffering from that problem. You are also asking yourself, how do I want to solve this problem? And in most cases, your how will evolve over the years. And because the world is dynamic anyway, you cannot say, because I started it this way, till thy kingdom come. So that is the first thing. So I'll give you a very simple example. You can see people that will tell you that, look, I want to solve the problem of maternal health. That is, you want to reduce the number of women that are dying from childbirth and any kind of child-related deaths, or even the babies. Now, if you wake up and say, I want to solve the problem in the whole of Nigeria, and you are just starting, you have already set yourself up. The reason is very simple. You can't swallow a whole cow at a go. You must have somewhere that you start as a tester. And as you begin to evolve, what now happens is that you learn from one community, and then you can now adapt some things, but also bear in mind that different things apply in different communities. And in being clear, your vision and your mission must align clearly with that, including your core values. If you say you want to reduce poverty in a certain community or a country, you know that reducing poverty can be measured, right? But the truth of the matter is that it can be measured depending on the kind of goals that you set around reducing poverty. But you know that in your lifetime till you die, it will be almost impossible to eradicate poverty. So the fact that you are reducing it means from in years to come, you are still working on reducing the numbers. And that is why when you are setting goals, it must be tied around what is measurable in terms of, is it a percentage you are reducing? The second P is people. Now, there is no organization that can be sustainable without people. Forget this AI and data, is it machine learning and the rest. They also need people. After all, it is people that are creating all the softwares and the rest. But when you are talking about sustainable organization, when I say forget them, I'm not saying they're not important. I'm going to bring them back because, we're talking about digitally empowered for impact. So they have a place to play, but they cannot replace people. That's where I'm coming to. When I talk of people, I'm talking about various stakeholders. You have people that are your internal team. You have people that are around your governance, which is your leadership structure. Then you have people that are the core stakeholders that you are serving, or the core stakeholders that you need to partner with to ensure that you are sustainable. When you start with your internal team, make sure that you have the right people. Most of the time when you start, you cannot afford the kinds of people that you want, but you must be able to communicate your vision and your purpose in such a way that the people buy into what you are doing. One of the things you need from people is an understanding of where you are going. Because once they have that understanding of where you are going, they follow you with the passion that is needed to execute and deliver on what you want to deliver on. And that is why you must consistently communicate why you exist. Don't think that because you have done an orientation at the beginning of your of their induction, it is enough. One thing I do in my organization is that every single week, without exception, at every meeting that we have on Mondays, we always still recite collectively the mission, the vision, the core values. Why? I want it to be a part of them. I want them to live it and breathe it. Now, when you look at your leadership structure, corporate governance is critical. And corporate governance means you have a board, not a board of your children or your just your brothers and sisters that don't have any talent that you can bring onto the board. You are looking for skill sets that you lack, that you know are necessary to take your organization to the next level. So if you are not good in finance, you are looking for somebody that is a financial expert, either an accountant, an auditor, a financial analyst, and the rest. If you know that you have gaps in the legal area, you don't have that experience, you want somebody that is legal on your team. It's just common sense. But the thing is that what most of us do is sentimental sense. And so when we're setting up boards, we're looking around us to say, my brother, my sister, my relative, my this. In fact, some even put their unborn children there or their 1 year old. What can your 1 year old contribute to decision making? You can have a shareholder structure. That one is different. But when you're talking about a board are bringing three things. Number one, their expertise. Number two, their experience. And number three, they are bringing their network, their connections to help you project and move forward in what you are doing. Then your stakeholders. In any structure of sustainability, you need to understand who your key stakeholders are. Now, I can only give you an example, for example, with my own organization. When you look at every non-profit or social enterprise, you definitely operate within a sector. And so you must understand the public sector players in your sector, the international donor agency players in your sector, and the private sector players in your sector. Why? They are the stakeholders that will help you to leave a sustainable organization behind. If you are a women-based organization, and so your focus is gender, but more tilted towards women, because some people have gender-based organization, but tilted towards men. You have to. There is no way you won't have any footprint in the Ministry of Women Affairs. If you are dealing with children, you must have your foot, especially if it's education, of course, Ministry of Education, and so on and so forth. Why am I saying this? If you don't embrace the public sector people that are the core to your organization, the policies that government will bring out that is relevant to your organization, you won't know about them, or they may end up affecting you. You must embrace those in the public sector. Very important to where you are going. Even your politicians, if there some of them that are the chairman of certain, not only the chairman, even the committee members of certain committees that are relevant to your organization, you must know them. They must at least know that you exist. When you come to the private sector, it's the same thing. Which private sector organizations are passionate about corporate social responsibility funding around the problem you are trying to solve? You must connect to them. International donor agencies, countries, you must be listening to the news. Every time you will see that certain countries have allocated a particular funding to a subject, a focus area. You will now be sitting and just hear maybe the president of, or prime minister, of Canada will just wake up and say, oh, we are going to give $500 million to maybe gender-based violence. And that is your core. You should be thinking, your head should go into, how can I plug in? Trace and follow the money. Who are the key players that they're giving this money to? Then you connect. Because it is your stakeholders that will help you. You go to media. Media are critical stakeholders. You find out who is the reporter in that area that you are focused on. Because all these people are critical stakeholders that you need to where you are going. And you must continue to build and sustain relationships, bearing in mind that a relationship you connect to today, you never know where that door will lead you to. But I can guarantee you that people help in opening doors. The third P is profit. As I said earlier, we don't call what we make as excess profit in the non-profit space or the social sector space. We call them a surplus. You need money to function. You need money to pay your bills. And you need money to do the work that you want to do within your communities. So money is important. But the thing is that you need structure around money. You need to understand, where is my income generation model? Where is my money coming from? You need to also understand, how can I keep my costs low? Because I'm a non-profit. You cannot be competing with banks that maybe even in their communications, they have all manner of media people and they're paying them in billions or millions in a year. You can't compete on that level. So you always have to think on, how can I keep my costs low? And you keep your costs low by also building relationships and giving people what you can offer. the larger the impact you have, the more people you attract, the easier it is for you to get the kind of support that you need. So be intentional in growing your organization, because in the long run, you will attract the kind of people you need, and in most cases, you will be surprised that they will do a lot of these things for you for free. Why? Because by that time you have built goodwill, and where you have built goodwill, you will benefit from a lot of free services or highly discounted services or even partnerships that work. So when you look at your financial model, for example, and I will give you examples of how, as a nonprofit, you can think of income generation. Number one, if you are a membership-based organization, obviously you can make money from your annual dues. Number two, you can make money from your programs. If your programs have an element of a registration, and in some cases, registration and sponsorship, you are making some income from that. You will expend, but you will also have something as a surplus to run your organization. The third thing is that you need to have partners and sponsors. For the money you are making, you must always invest something. Don't spend everything that comes in as a non-profit, but you must always invest something, no matter how small. The next thing I want to tell you is that you can make money from international grants, international and local grants. What differentiates grants from loans is that a grant is money that is given you for a certain purpose, and once you have gotten that money and you have executed what it is and you have submitted the report, you are not paying back the money. That money was given to you to work on. But there are certain things you need to put in place, especially accountability and reports, to make sure that you report properly on that. The other thing I would want to mention that is also an income generation model is that, and this is where your digital network comes in. You know, there's a lot of online giving platforms, GoFundMe and the rest. So if you are very good with that digital platform, you can leverage on it for people from all over the world to always be giving to your cause. And then you can have individual donors. There are some people that would just want to give to a cause because they believe in it. Maybe they have suffered that thing in their lifetime. So for example, you can see somebody that maybe has a cancer-focused non-profit, and maybe somebody's mother died from cancer. You'll be surprised that out of just the sheer thought of this is something I want to support, they will give you such funding. And then you can go into all manner of partnerships that also leads to, there is a benefit for me, there's a benefit for you, and so every year you find people giving. And so you can also apply to the government for government grants and government aid. And you need to be very strict about your budgeting. Never ever do anything that you cannot pay for. What that means is that within your budget circle and within the budget around every program, always make sure that a program must pay for itself. Never take a loan to do a program. Never plan a program just on expectation. You must have a clear model of, if I can get 100 people, then it will pay for this. Don't go and pay for something with the anticipation you'll get 100 people. So the next P is processes. Now, processes fall around your operational guidelines. Processes will include the technology you use, the policies you abide by, what are the tools you are using in your organization, what are all the platforms, whether digitally or non-digitally platforms that you are operating by. There's what we call the organizational playbook. And luckily now we even have digital formats of developing that playbook. A playbook is a guide on everything around how things are done in your organization. Remember, sustainability is not about individuals. So it means that whether people come and go, there is continuity because they know what to do, because they have met a structure in place. And that is what processes are all about. So that people don't come in all the time and are changing. We do know that yet we live in a dynamic world. But you don't want your brand diluted by all manner of changes all the time. So you must stand for something. There are the core things that you cannot compromise, but then other things that are flexible and adaptable, you can change and correct over a period of time. Now let me give you an example, because you are non-profit people. Most people don't even know that as a non-profit organization, you can apply to Microsoft in the United States through one of their local authorized dealers. You can apply for an NGO or non-profit status to get the Microsoft tools for free. Lifetime access for free because you are a non-profit. So that's the way they give back. So you need to do your research. And sometimes, even if no organization is doing it, be bold enough to write any organization in the world. If you have a product that you want, introduce what you are doing and all that, and ask. You know, one of the things we don't learn to do is to ask. You'll be surprised what you can get for free if you know how to present yourself properly and also ask. I will say that there is no organization that can be successful if you are not productive. Productivity is key to sustainability. And productivity means that you are actively producing something that people can see, people can acknowledge, and people can talk about. Whether it's a productive team, whether it's a productive service you are rendering, whether it's a productive organization or place that you have, people will know and they will speak about it. You know that there are some restaurants you will go to, everything about it, top-notch service. People on their own will help you spread the news. There are some places you will go to, it's people that will say, don't bother going there. It's the same thing with your organization. And so one of the things I want to say about productivity is that communication is a fuel that is critical to sustainability. You cannot be doing all this work and nobody knows about it. You must identify, if you don't know how to do it yourself, you must identify key people, whether it is in video production. I do know good organizations like U Visuals. They're very good when it comes to how they package videos for you and communicate it. You can look for them on social media, U Visuals, for example. Now, they will help you do your video in such a way that when you post it, it attracts attention. They will tell your stories very well. Some will do it in graphics format. When you are doing your graphics, for example, make sure that it is communicating something. You cannot be somebody in this social space and be digitally empowered when you are not a social media person. Then where do you want to take your digitalization to? Because the only way the world will know what you are doing is by what they see on your platforms. So you must amplify what you are doing. In fact, amplify it even bigger than what people think it is. Because, you know, there was a time I traveled. I had always, when I was a child, I had always had this love for Oprah Winfrey. Because this woman used the camera to amplify herself around the world. And so there was a time I traveled to the US. This was years after she was one of my role models or mentors in her own right. And so I happened to go to the town, I think then it was Chicago, where her studio was. So I just made up my mind that I want to go and snap in front of the studio, just so that it is on record that my leg touched the soil that Oprah operates for. Of course, when I got there, the gates were tightly shut, but I wasn't even interested in entering. I just wanted to take a picture in front of the studio. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I even got there, I was even surprised that the size of the studio, that is, she now, because of the communication and what she has done to amplify what she's doing in front of the cameras, she herself was bigger in terms of size than the actual studio that projection is coming from. So the point I'm trying to make is that you can be so tiny as an organization, but the type of noise you make will be so amplified that everybody will be attracted to what you are doing. And the final P I want to say is that you need energy to be sustainable. And energy is the passion that goes with social sector organizations. Because you need fuel to move. And if you don't have the passion, first you as the founder or visionary or the CEO or whoever you are, or even the workforce, it is your passion that will be infused in everybody. everybody will feel that energy around you. And that is what leads to the attraction that you will get as an organization. So, in concluding, I want to remind you that if you want to build a sustainable organization, make sure you develop the best of your people. Very important. You are clear about your purpose. Your processes are top notch. Your eye is on the profit, even though we call it surplus. The fifth one is that you must make sure, without a doubt, that you are productive. So productivity should be top notch on your mind. And then lastly, fuel whatever you are doing with passion. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that one thing I have said today will resonate, and we look forward to hearing about your brand long even after you have gone, because we believe that sustainability is not about an individual. It is about institutionalizing what you determine to do and the impact you want to make in this world and what you want to contribute to nation building. Thank you very much.